What if the very thoughts you're thinking right now are the only thing standing music between you and the divine abundance, peace, and guidance you've been desperately seeking? I know this sounds radical, perhaps even impossible, but stay with me until the end of this video because what you're about to discover might completely revolutionize your entire spiritual experience. For years, maybe even decades, you've been taught to pray, to ask, to petition God for what you need. You've filled journals with prayer, requests, attended countless services, and poured your heart out in desperate pleas for breakthrough. But here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody talks about. What if your constant asking is actually the problem? What if every time you beg God for healing, you're unconsciously declaring to the universe, "I am broken"? Every time you pray for financial breakthrough, you're energetically affirming, "I am in lack." It's a spiritual paradox that has kept millions trapped in cycles of frustration and disconnection. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Has this ever happened to you? You pray intensely for something you desperately need, yet the situation seems to get worse instead of better. You cry out to God for clarity, only to find yourself more confused than before. You beg for peace, yet anxiety grips you even tighter. There's a profound reason this happens, and it has everything to do with where your consciousness is focused. What if I told you that the spiritual masters throughout history discovered something that mainstream religion rarely teaches? They found that the most powerful state of being isn't asking God for anything at all. Instead, it's surrendering every single thought you have and allowing God to literally become your mind. Not your helper, not your divine assistant responding to your requests, but your actual consciousness, your thinking, your awareness itself. This isn't about positive thinking or trying harder at prayer. This is about a fundamental shift in who you believe yourself to be. Imagine for a moment what would happen if you stopped trying to figure everything out with your limited human mind. What if you released your grip on all those anxious thoughts, those controlling strategies, those endless mental calculations about how to make your life work? What if instead you simply opened yourself to receive divine intelligence flowing through you as naturally as breath flows through your lungs? The mystic Goldsmith spent decades uncovering this truth. And what he discovered challenges everything we've been taught about spirituality. He found that we're not separate beings trying to get God's attention. We're not spiritual beggars standing outside heaven's door hoping someone will answer. The revolutionary truth is far more beautiful and far more radical than that. But to understand it fully, we need to explore what really happens when you stop asking and start surrendering. When you release your thoughts and let God be your mind instead. Here's the profound truth that changes everything. The divine isn't withholding a single thing from you. Not the healing you're desperately seeking. Not the financial breakthrough you've been praying for. Not the wisdom to navigate your most difficult decisions. Not the peace that seems to elude you no matter how hard you try. These aren't treasures locked away in some cosmic vault waiting for you to say the perfect prayer or perform the right spiritual ritual. This is the hidden truth that most spiritual teachings completely miss. What's actually happening is far more beautiful and far more accessible than you've been led to believe. Divine abundance, guidance, healing, and love are flowing toward you right now in this very moment, like a perpetual stream of grace that never stops. The problem isn't that God is ignoring your requests or testing your faith. The problem is that your consciousness is tuned to the wrong frequency. Your mind is so filled with anxious thoughts, controlling strategies, and desperate asking that you can't perceive what's already being given. Think of it this way. Imagine there's a radio station broadcasting the most beautiful music throughout the entire universe, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never stopping, never fading. This music has been playing since before you were born and will continue long after you're gone. Now, the crucial question isn't whether the music exists. The music is always there. The question is, are you tuned in to receive it? When your radio is turned off or tuned to static, the music doesn't stop broadcasting. You're simply not positioned to hear it. This is exactly what happens in your spiritual life. Divine intelligence is constantly transmitting solutions, opportunities, breakthroughs, and revelations directly to you. The broadcast never stops. But when your mind is cluttered with fear-based thinking, when you're constantly trying to figure everything out, when you're operating from that desperate energy of asking and begging, you're essentially tuned to static. The transformation begins the moment you make a fundamental mindset shift. Instead of generating more thoughts about what you need and how to get it, you surrender those thoughts entirely and allow God to be your mind. If this resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe and join this community of spiritual seekers who are learning to shift from human thinking to divine intelligence. Every video we create together explores deeper dimensions of letting God live through you. Behind the scenes of this simple practice, something extraordinary starts happening. The barriers you've unconsciously built begin dissolving. The interference that's been blocking divine transmission starts clearing away. You're not creating a new reality or manifesting something that wasn't there before. You're simply removing the obstacles to what has always been flowing in your direction. This is the journey from human thinking to divine intelligence, from your limited perspective to infinite wisdom operating through you. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because understanding this intellectually is one thing, but experiencing the actual impact in your daily life is something entirely different. When you truly begin to surrender your thoughts and let God be your mind, specific things start happening that you can actually observe and measure in your real-world experience. Right, I'm tuning in the comments. If this is starting to make sense to you, the moment you shift from asking to receiving, something profound happens at an energetic level that most people never recognize. When you're stuck in asking mode, constantly petitioning and pleading, your entire being vibrates with a frequency of lack. It's subtle, but it's there in every desperate prayer, every anxious thought about what you don't have. There's this underlying current that whispers through your consciousness. I am incomplete. I am broken. I am separate from what I need. And here's the revelation that changes everything. This vibration of lack actually pushes away the very things you're reaching for. Think about it from a purely energetic perspective. When you approach someone from desperate neediness, they instinctively pull back. When you relate to life from a place of scarcity, opportunities seem to vanish. The universe responds not to your words, but to your energetic signature. So when you're vibrating at the frequency of I don't have life mirrors that back to you with more experiences of not having, it's not punishment, it's simply resonance. This is the hidden trap that keeps so many people stuck in cycles of spiritual frustration despite years of prayer and practice. But the transformation that occurs when you surrender your thoughts and let God be your mind creates an entirely different energetic reality. Instead of broadcasting lack, you begin resonating with fullness. Instead of separation, you embody union. There's a quiet confidence that settles into your being, not from ego or false bravado, but from a deep recognition. What God has, I have. What God is, I am. This isn't arrogance. It's the most humble acknowledgement possible, because you're recognizing that your good doesn't come from your own efforts or clever thinking. It flows through you as divine expression. The impact of this mindset shift shows up in tangible, measurable ways in your daily life. Decisions that used to paralyze you with fear suddenly become clear. It's not that you're trying harder to figure things out, it's that divine wisdom flows through you naturally when your own anxious thinking steps aside. Opportunities that were always there, but invisible to your cluttered consciousness suddenly appear, right in front of you, like they've been waiting for you to notice them all along. Relationships that felt strained and difficult begin healing without you forcing anything or manipulating anyone. The change happens because you're no longer relating from need and desperation, but from wholeness and peace. This journey from human striving to divine flow isn't passive resignation. Behind the scenes, something incredibly active is taking place. You're allowing infinite intelligence to think through you, to guide your decisions, to orchestrate circumstances in ways your limited human mind could never conceive. This is receptivity at its most powerful, opening yourself to receive what's already being given, rather than demanding what you think you need. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by showing you exactly what this looks like in real situations, with real people facing real challenges. Because theory only takes you so far, type divine flow in the comments if you're beginning to feel this energetic shift yourself. Let me share something with you that might surprise you by its simplicity. The actual practice of surrendering your thoughts and letting God be your mind doesn't require elaborate rituals, special training, or years of preparation. In fact, the transformation begins with just 10 minutes of your day. That's it. 10 minutes where you stop approaching spirituality like you're placing an order at a restaurant, rattling off your list of needs and demands to a cosmic waiter who may or may not deliver what you want. Instead, you sit quietly and you say one simple thing within yourself. I'm now open to receive all that God is giving me. Notice what's happening in that statement. There's no begging, no bargaining, no desperate pleading for specific outcomes. You're not trying to convince God to do something or manifest a particular result through force of will. You're simply acknowledging a profound truth. Divine supply is already flowing and you're opening yourself to receive it. This paradigm shift might seem subtle, but behind the scenes, it's revolutionary. You're moving from the exhausting energy of pushing and striving to the natural flow of receiving. Think about how the earth receives rain. Does it strain? Does it worry whether the rain will come? Does it create elaborate strategies to make the clouds open? No, it simply remains receptive. And when the rain falls, it receives. Your lungs don't beg for air. They breathe in the oxygen that's already there. A flower doesn't manufacture sunlight through sheer willpower. It turns toward the sun and receives what's being offered. This is the hidden truth about spiritual practice that transforms everything. You're not creating divine supply. You're not earning it. You're not convincing God to finally give it to you. You're simply becoming an open channel for what's already flowing. The impact of this practice unfolds gradually as you make it part of your daily journey. Those 10 minutes become sacred space, where your anxious human thinking steps aside and divine intelligence moves through you unobstructed. You're not forcing visualizations or straining to imagine specific outcomes. You're not white-knuckling your way through affirmations while secretly doubting they'll work. You're simply being receptive, allowing revelations and intuitive wisdom to emerge naturally, like spring water bubbling up from an underground source that was always there. This is the transformation from effort to effortlessness, from the exhausting struggle of trying to control everything with your limited human mind, to the grace of letting infinite wisdom think through you. Each day you practice, you become more attuned to this divine frequency, more sensitive to the guidance that's always been broadcasting, more aligned with the flow. That's your natural state. The decisions you need to make become clearer, not because you're thinking harder, but because you're thinking less and receiving more. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because what I'm about to share with you demonstrates how this practice plays out when you're facing real challenges. The kind of situations where surrender feels almost impossible, but turns out to be exactly what unlocks the breakthrough. Share open channel in the comments if you're ready to practice this receptive awareness in your own life. Let me tell you about Maria, because her story illustrates exactly what happens when you make this shift from desperate, asking to receptive surrender. For 3 years, she had been praying for financial breakthrough with an intensity that bordered on violence. Every night she would literally shake her fists at heaven, demanding answers, begging God to fix her mounting debt and dwindling bank account. The more desperately she asked, the worse her situation became. It was like watching someone try to catch water with clenched fists. The tighter she gripped, the faster it slipped away. When Maria discovered this teaching about receptivity, her first reaction was fear. If I stop asking, God will forget about me completely, she thought. But desperation had brought her to a place where she was willing to try anything. For 30 days she committed to practicing differently. Each morning and evening she would sit and quietly and surrender her anxious thoughts, opening her consciousness to divine supply without demanding specific outcomes. The first 2 weeks were brutal. Nothing seemed to be happening. Externally and internally she felt empty, almost frightened by the silence. But something was shifting beneath the surface that she couldn't yet see. Behind the SCE-ness, a profound transformation was taking place in her energy field. That constant knot of anxiety that had lived in her chest for 3 years began loosening its grip. Her sleep improved. Her decisions became clearer. By week 3, something remarkable started happening. An unexpected freelance opportunity appeared through an old contact she hadn't heard from in years. A debt she thought was permanent got mysteriously forgiven through a company restructuring. A refund check she'd forgotten about arrived in the mail. None of these things came from her striving or strategizing. They emerged naturally as she stopped blocking the flow. With her desperate asking, 6 months later, Maria's entire financial reality had transformed, not through her own thinking and planning, but through allowing God to be her mind to orchestrate solutions her limited human consciousness could never have conceived. The impact wasn't just financial. Her whole relationship with life had changed from one of fear and control to one of trust and receptivity. David's journey demonstrates this same principle in the realm of physical healing. For 5 years, he had battled a chronic illness that doctors couldn't fully explain or cure. His prayer life had become exhausting, an endless cycle of begging, pleading, and bargaining with God. The turning point came when he discovered he could surrender his thoughts about his condition entirely. Instead of fighting his symptoms with anxious mental strategies, he began sitting quietly each day, simply opening himself to receive the perfect health that existed as his divine inheritance. This wasn't denial or positive thinking. It was recognition of a deeper spiritual reality beyond physical appearance. Within a year, his medical tests showed significant improvement that his doctors called spontaneous remission. David had a different name for it, learning to let God be his mind. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because these stories reveal something crucial about how divine intelligence operates when we step aside and let it work through us, rather than trying to control outcomes through our limited thinking. Write "I surrender" in the comments if these stories are resonating with your own experience. Jennifer's story takes this principle into the most challenging territory of all, relationships. For years, she had been on her knees praying, the same desperate prayer. Please change my husband, make him understand me, fix our communication, transform him into the partner I need. Every prayer was focused outward, asking God to manipulate someone else to force external circumstances to align with what she thought would make her happy. What she didn't realize was that this entire approach was reinforcing the very separation she was trying to heal. Her asking was broadcasting a message. I am incomplete. He is wrong. We are broken. When Jennifer encountered this teaching on receptivity, something inside her resisted immediately. If I stop asking God to fix my marriage, it will definitely fall apart, she thought. But her current strategy clearly wasn't working. So she decided to experiment with a radically different approach. Instead of trying to control her husband or manipulate outcomes with her thoughts, she practiced receiving divine love into her own consciousness. Each morning she would sit quietly, surrendering all her judgments about what he should be doing differently, opening herself simply to receive God's love without conditions or demands. The transformation started so subtly she almost didn't notice it. She found herself responding to her husband differently, less reactive when he said things that used to trigger her, more peaceful in situations that previously sparked conflict, genuinely more loving without forcing it or pretending. Behind the scenes, as she let God be her mind instead of operating from her own anxious thinking, the entire relationship dynamic began shifting. He started responding differently too, not because she was manipulating him, but because the energy she was bringing into their interactions had fundamentally changed. This is the hidden power of surrender. When you transform your own consciousness, you change the field that everyone around you is responding to. But here's what makes this practice truly revolutionary. You don't have to wait for your 10 minutes of quiet meditation to experience this shift. Throughout your entire day, in the most mundane moments, you can practice the presence. While you're washing dishes, stuck in traffic, standing in line at the grocery store, waiting for a meeting to start, you can pause for just a second and acknowledge God is here. This isn't asking God to show up or begging for divine intervention. It's recognizing what's already true. The divine presence isn't somewhere else waiting for you to summon it. It's right here, right now, in this exact moment. A gentle tap on the like button helps this message reach others who need to hear it right now. Your simple gesture creates ripples that extend far beyond what we can. See, these micro moments of acknowledgement become profound resets of your entire consciousness. They train your awareness to surrender the controlling thoughts that usually dominate your mind and remain in receptive mode instead. The impact accumulates over time, where you once automatically responded to every challenge with anxiety and frantic mental calculations about how to fix things. You begin responding from a place of allowing God to be your mind, trusting that divine intelligence is already working through the situation in ways you can't yet see. Now, I want to go even deeper into his topic, because what I'm about to share reveals the single biggest obstacle that stops most people from experiencing this transformation, and understanding how to work with it changes everything. Type God is here in the comments if you're beginning to practice this presence throughout your day. Here's what most people get completely wrong about spiritual practice. When you face a challenge, whether it's a health issue, a financial crisis, or a relationship breakdown, the automatic response is to identify the problem and then ask God to fix it. You focus intensely on the condition, analyzing every detail of what's wrong, and then you petition God to come in and change it. This seems logical, even responsible. But there's a hidden flaw in this approach that keeps you trapped in the very condition you're trying to escape. The breakthrough comes when you realize you don't need to treat the condition at all. You treat your consciousness instead. When you're facing any challenge in your life, instead of focusing on the problem and devising mental strategies to solve it, you practice something completely different. You say within yourself, I release this situation to divine intelligence. I open myself to receive God's perfect solution. I rest in the truth that infinite wisdom is already resolving this in ways I cannot see. Notice what's happening here. You're not analyzing the problem. You're not asking for a specific outcome. You're surrendering your limited thinking about the situation and allowing divine intelligence to work through it. This creates a gateway for solutions that your human mind, with all its limitations and fears, could never conceive. The impact of this mindset shift is profound because you're no longer trying to force outcomes through your own understanding. You're stepping aside and letting infinite wisdom operate. Behind the scenes, possibilities that were completely invisible to your anxious thinking suddenly become available. Opportunities emerge that weren't there before, not because they were created out of nothing, but because your consciousness has shifted to a frequency where you can finally perceive them. But here's where most people hit a wall that stops them completely. When you start practicing this way, surrendering your thoughts and letting God be your mind, there's a persistent feeling that overwhelms almost everyone. The feeling that you're doing absolutely nothing. This discomfort can be so intense, so unsettling that it drives people right back to their old patterns of asking, striving, and controlling. Asking feels active. It feels powerful. It feels like you're taking charge and making things happen. Receiving, on the other hand, feels passive, lazy, even irresponsible. Your ego starts screaming, you have to think, you have to figure this out, you can't just sit there and do nothing, you have to make something happen. This is the revelation that changes everything. That uncomfortable feeling of doing nothing is actually a sign that you're making real progress. What you're experiencing is the dissolution of your habitual interference with divine flow. For your entire life, you've been operating under the assumption that you have to make everything happen through your own thinking and effort. Now, you're learning to step aside, and it feels strange, almost frightening. But the truth is, when you let God be your mind, you're not being passive at all. You're being receptive, which is profoundly active in the spiritual dimension. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding intellectually that this discomfort is progress is one thing, but actually navigating through it and experiencing the transformation on the other side is something entirely different. Share I'm releasing. Control in the comments if you're recognizing this obstacle in your own journey. What I'm about to share with you might be the most challenging concept to grasp, yet it's also the most liberating truth you'll ever encounter. Your entire life, you've been operating from a fundamental belief that shapes everything you experience. That belief is this: you are a separate human being. disconnected from God, trying to get things from an external deity who may or may not respond to your requests. This belief creates the whole paradigm of asking, begging, and pleading. It positions you as the spiritual beggar standing outside heaven's gates, hoping someone will throw you what you need. But here's the ultimate revelation that transforms everything. You are not separate from God, trying to receive gifts from an external source. You are the very consciousness of God, receiving awareness of your own infinite nature. This isn't metaphor or poetic language. This is the hidden truth about your actual identity that changes the entire game. When you surrender every thought and let God be your mind, you're not getting something new that you didn't have before. You're removing the veil that has been blocking your recognition of what has always been yours. You're not becoming spiritual through effort and practice. You're recognizing the spirituality that has always been your essential nature, covered over by layers of false identification and separation. Consciousness. The impact of this identity shift ripples through every dimension of your existence. Behind the scenes, your entire relationship with life transforms. You stop approaching each day as a struggle to acquire what you lack and start experiencing it as a journey of discovering what you already are. Your decisions come from a completely different place, not from fear and limitation, but from infinite wisdom expressing through you. The challenges you face don't disappear, but your relationship to them fundamentally changes because you're no longer facing them alone with your small, frightened human mind. You're allowing divine intelligence to address them through you. This is what it means to truly let God be your mind. You're not trying to get God to live through you as if convincing some external force to finally pay attention to your needs. You're acknowledging something that has never stopped being true. God has never stopped living through you. Divine intelligence has been flowing through your consciousness since before you were born. The only obstacle was your unawareness of this eternal truth. Every moment you spend practicing this receptivity, you're not creating a new spiritual reality. You're waking up to the one that's always been operating. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because recognizing this truth intellectually is just the beginning. And what happens when you actually start living from this awareness in your daily life reveals dimensions of existence most people never experience. Write, "I am divine consciousness" in the comments. If this truth is beginning to awaken in you, if you've made it this far with me, I want you to know something. You're not here by accident. The fact that you've stayed through this entire exploration tells me you're genuinely ready for this shift in consciousness. You're not just casually browsing spiritual content. You're actively seeking the transformation that comes from surrendering your thoughts and letting God be your mind. I create these videos because I truly believe these insights have the power to change lives, not through my words, but through the eternal truths they point toward. If this message resonated with something deep inside you, I'd love for you to join this community of seekers who are learning to move from separation consciousness to divine receptivity. Hit that subscribe button so you can continue this journey with us, because each video explores another dimension of what it means to live from divine intelligence rather than limited human thinking. And here's what would mean the world to me. Drop a comment below saying, "I'm letting God be my mind so I know you were here." That you received this message, that something shifted in you as we walk through this together. Your presence in this community matters more than you realize. A simple tap on the like button helps this teaching reach others who are searching for exactly what you just discovered. It's a small gesture that creates ripples far beyond what we can see. There's something else I want to share with you that builds directly on what we've explored today. There's a video right here that goes even deeper into how divine intelligence operates when you completely release control. Click on it, and let's continue this conversation together. I'll meet you there.